30 degrees. Indianapolis Center, do you have any test operations restricted area 2508?
Aries 31, roger. Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion, over.
Roger, Aries 31. Continue to send at your discretion, over.
Okay, Center. The traffic is approaching head-on, ultra bright, and really moving. They're right by us right now.
There are 1,000 UFO sightings reported around the world every month. 90% of these sightings can be explained, but 10% cannot. Officially and unofficially, the U.S. military has been investigating UFOs since 1947. Their top secret goal is to find out what's behind these unexplained sightings. The Pentagon classifies them as unusual airborne anomalies, but a better term is X-Files. Join us now as Mack, Wanwan, and Commander Cobra explore these unsolved cases, UFO incidents that baffle even the U.S. military. This is Mack Maloney's Military X-Files. And now, here's Mack Maloney.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. What a show we have for you tonight. But first, let's introduce the members of the posse/party. Girls, get ready. Please be seated. Please have your fan already. You missed your big box of Kleenex and the little package of wipes. Wow. Very famous Wanwan is here.
Hello, girls. Welcome aboard to this crazy train here we call the Mack Maloney Show. Mack, how you doing?
Just pulling out of the station. That's what she said. I'm doing okay. Everything. You're very groovy looking here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
like
got the
these,
thing
you
going
like
down.
These?
Yeah, the shades. What is the shades are doing? Where'd you get them? Flowered glasses?
No, I think the drugstore.
Really?
Yeah. Hannaford.
Okay.
Believe it or not, they're not Ray-Bans.
Is that a
like my other ones?
Is that a boutique? Yeah. Up there. Speaking of boutiques, up there in the Great White North, in his compound, recently expanded from a bunker. They know him as Coco on the streets. We know him as Commander Cobra. Coco.
Well, good evening, Mac. And as always, it's a pleasure to join the formation, be part of the stellar organization that is
stellar.
Mack Maloney's Military X-Files, not just the Military Mack Maloney Show or whatever it is that one.
Whatever it is. Yep, whatever the title is. Thank you. Everything okay with you?
It is very well, sir.
What's that? What's the poster behind you? Does that say Simplify?
No, this is a flag here, Mac. Mm-hmm. This is the flag from the Revolutionary War from called the Lexington flag, or sometimes referred to as the Bedford flag.
Okay. Whose side were you on?
Maybe I can tilt it up so you can see it just a little bit better there. You'll see that it's known for the arm coming out of the cloud with the sword.
Okay.
And it says victory or death.
Ah. Whose side were you on in that?
Wow. I was on the side of the revolutionaries.
The winning side. Speaking of revolutionaries, up there in the Bowl of Flakes, Battle Creek. The Battle Creek of the Republic is national correspondent Switchblade Steve Ward.
Hey, Switchy.
Switchy.
Hey, great to be here, guys.
Yeah? You sure? Okay. And how are you?
I am beyond wonderful.
Okay. All right. Let's get back. We got to get back to you and your culinary habits, okay? Big part of the show. But let me introduce the rest of the gang. He's our security chief, which means we got to be on our best behavior there, Jasper.
No kidding.
Yep.
And we're not just talking about language either.
That's right. He's been mistaken more than once as, probably shouldn't say this, as Whitey Bulger, but it's Willy Clubb. Willy, how you doing?
Hi, Mac. Hi, folks.
Hi, Willy.
I can feel the electricity in the air tonight.
Is that what it is?
I don't know what it is, but
it's the big chair. Oh, okay.
220, 440,
220, I think.
Somewhere in between. Let's go to
3-phase.
Okay.
3-phase 440.
All right, here's another reason, too.
Not a 6-volt battery, though, right?
No.
9-volt.
Wow.
Isn't it interesting that Clubb joined us really officially after Whitey Bulger was apprehended and was no longer needed as a body
That's
double?
right.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate, but
me neither.
It's all right.
Accurate, appropriate, and accuracy, two different things, my friend.
Okay.
It's a cover. It was a well-executed make-believe he's dead cover.
Huh, really? And he wound up on this show?
Yep.
Really? Yeah, well, it's
killed
quite the
by
cover.
a bag of batteries? Come on.
Forgive them, Whitey. Hey, listen. Another reason we have to behave ourselves because everyone's favorite empath is with us. Valerie LaFaso. Val, how you doing?
I'm good, Mac. How are you?
Good to see you, Valerie.
Good to see you. Yep.
Yeah, good to be here.
How are things with you? Okay.
Yeah, things are good.
Okay.
Things are good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Then without further ado, let's switch back to Switchy. And we have to ask him. This is the big part of the show. I know. This can't believe
is the highlight of the show. Right.
Fan letters we get. In fact, fan letters for Switchy is coming up later on.
It's crazy.
Okay, Switch. So America wants to, not just America, apparently, Canada and a good part of Europe want to know what you had for breakfast this morning.
Are you sure, Mac? Is some of this kind of what they would call artistic license, maybe exaggeration?
It's not a bit.
We
get fan mail. Hasn't he shown you any of those letters?
What you have
But how many emails, fan letters could possibly be asking about
Wait for the bit.
what I had for breakfast?
The bit is coming later on in the segment, okay? What you have for breakfast? Frosted Flakes?
Okay.
Soggy?
Or donuts?
All right. I'd been... no, I'm saying it wasn't that exciting this morning. I'd been doing a lot of traveling, and I got up late. And I just had yogurt.
What?
Now lunch was more interesting, but for breakfast I had yogurt.
Yogurt? Who are you, and what have you done with Switch? What you have for lunch?
I had a Clubb sandwich with fries.
There you go. Willy Clubb is the Willy Clubb sandwich.
I eat a lot of those myself.
Tell them what you had at the compound, Switch.
Oh man,
goat.
French toast,
oh,
pancakes, sausage.
Oh, that's bad.
And that isn't even like the main course. That isn't like the main.
That's the appetizer.
The main attraction.
Yeah.
We had with turkeys. We had stuffing.
Really?
There was pasta. There was salad. There was
amazing, isn't it?
What's the turkey's name?
I even got some muffins to go.
Muffins to go. Okay. That's the name.
So the scone thief wasn't there, huh?
Oh, all right. Okay. Relax. Turn the page, will you? Anyway. Okay, so yogurt, Switchy, yogurt.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why you were asking me earlier whether you should lie.
I eat yogurt once in a while.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're gonna have to. It might be a low point there, Switchy. I hate to be the one to tell you.
It's a probiotic.
You can't do steak and eggs every time.
That's right.
People are going to get bored. So if you aim a little low every once in a while,
really?
they'll when you say something dynamic like, I don't know.
How about this?
Well, like steak and eggs.
Well, why don't you eat the yogurt on Wednesday
or like an omelet with all the fixings? Then they'll get excited again.
Eat that on Tuesdays and eat the yogurt on Mondays or Wednesdays. Wouldn't that make more sense there, Chief?
I'm not that big of a planner usually. I kind of shoot from the hip, Mac.
Wow. Okay,
that's my motto.
That's
shoot from the hip.
Good. 3 minutes and 13 seconds is good. So, well, listen. As it turns out, let me just tell you what's coming up on the show, and then we have a little bit has to do with your fan mail there, Switchy. Coming up later on the show, we're going to be talking to Dr. Bob Gross, who is someone who is very much into the research end and the military end of UFOs. And he's a musicologist, too, so it's a good kumbaya. He's going to be joining us from Chicago very soon. And then somewhere in the show, Cobra and I are going to be doing a co-presentation, JJ. How about that?
Yeah. Yep.
UFOs in Vietnam. We have just two, not crazy stories. They actually happened. Or at least I know mine happened. But they've been probably the most oft-told stories about UFOs in Vietnam, paranormal activity in Vietnam. And, who knows what else is going to happen. But why don't we go to the fan letter section now, okay? We had to go through all the fan letters. I'm going to say that...
Did you wear gloves?
We wore gloves, and Clubb helped us in his heart and in his mind. He was helping us. But, Valerie, you have the list of Switch's fan letters?
I do. So ready to go.
We're going to go the top 10 Switch fan letters, okay? You ready?
Are these excerpts from the fan letters?
No, they're all very short.
Okay.
As it turns out. Okay? So here we go. Top 10 Switch fan letters. Number 10, please, Valerie.
All right. Number 10 is, Dear Switch, on a recent show, you said you owned 2 pairs of pajamas. My question was one for day and the other for night?
So you have day ones and night ones?
Well, I think actually I own. I don't know if I said that, but I'll take your word for it. I have several pair, but they sort day and night sort of blends into each other.
Do they really?
when it comes to pajamas. Okay. So I can't make a distinction.
So you have different ones for different nights, different days of the week.
In fact, I'm wearing some right now.
Wow, how ironic. Okay. Next one, please. They
kind of clash with my shirt, though. So.
Okay. Well, stay sitting down, please. Go ahead, Val. Number 9.
All right. Hi, Switch. Love the show. Have you ever had an all donut day where you ate nothing but donuts?
Have you had a day with just nothing but donuts?
I'd say it probably there was one day maybe where it was about 90%.
90%? Holy cow.
Well, this is back years ago when my constitution was a little different.
Okay.
Mack, would it be a good time to mention that Sweetwater Donuts, the official donuts of Mack Maloney Military X-File show, does have donuts that are meals in themselves.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. They're huge donuts. Sweetwater's Donut Mill in Battle Creek, the official donut shop of the Mack Maloney Show. Okay, Switchy. So what we're saying, you said 90%, so you had 9 donuts that day?
I'm not sure. I know there was a day when I lived on a lot of donuts, but this is the fog of memory is just I couldn't even tell you what decade it was.
That's some fog there, brother. Okay, next fan letter, please. Val.
Dear Switch, when you served on the submarine, how many times did they let you shoot the torpedoes? Signed, Cobra.
Oh, Cobra's letting it. Once a day?
They wouldn't let me anywhere near any fire control.
See,
they just, they were kind of when I got any close to any buttons or anything that might trigger something, they made sure I had somebody with me at all times.
That's not inclusive.
That wasn't what you said here at the compound. I'm just saying that there's a bit of a conflict in answers.
They tried to trick me into the tube once, but I was too smart for them.
Wow.
I hit in the reactor.
Another show. Oh, good. Yeah, that's why he has that glow. Next letter, please, Valerie. Top 10 fan letters for Switch.
All right, number 7. Dearest Switchy, have you ever had an erotic dream about Tony the Tiger? I have.
Oh.
I have not. Okay. And I was concerned when my original nickname for the show was Stiletto. And
remember that?
And Mack would always mention Tony the Tiger and the Bowl of Flakes when it came on. I was concerned that people were envisioning me in a Tony the Tiger T-shirt wearing stiletto high heels.
And what's your problem with that?
I had to put...
he actually provided photographs.
Well, people sent us Photoshop pictures.
It was just an artist rendition. It was a conception. It was not a photograph.
So that's why he's not Stiletto Steve. He's now Switchblade Steve. Because we go through this all the time. In the hood, I don't know what that noise was. In the hood, to us, stiletto means a jacket.
That was the bear dog in the background.
Really?
We had a UFO over by the house.
Okay.
There he is right there.
Yes. Next letter, please, Val.
Bear is so great.
Next letter, number 6. Hey, Switch, how's the book coming along?
How's the book coming?
It's coming along, but it's let's see, what decade? It will be sometime this decade.
Okay, cool. That's nice. This decade. Okay, so you got 10 years. Okay, sounds good. Sounds like you're hard work. Next fan letter, please, Val.
Okay, number 5. Greetings, first electrician's mate, Ward, Stephen. I am currently an ensign on a vessel you served on, SSN 39, the USS Tunafish. The captain had requested I send out some quote-unquote literature we found under your hot rack. What's the best mailing address?
Literature.
There's my compound in Maine, southern Maine.
Care of, yeah.
That's where to send it.
Care of Cocoa, okay.
Did the pages stick together?
Oh, well, see. I'm waiting. Thank you, Clubb. Thank you for saving that.
Clubb, wow.
That's next fan letter, please. Hurry, Valerie.
Number 4, my man Switchy, how they hangin', signed Coco's Gelding Rick.
Repeat that, please.
Yes, please. For the lawyers, thank you.
Go ahead, please. Give them what they want, Val. Go ahead.
I'll just leave that as a rhetorical question.
No, let her repeat the question, please, Valerie.
All right, it says, my man Switchy, how they hangin', signed Coco's Gelding Rick.
Coco's Gelding's name is Rick. Okay, they're hanging just fine was the answer. Okay.
Yes, but I don't have a gelding named Rick.
Okay. What is your gelding's name?
It's Teddy.
Teddy, sorry. Teddy Kennedy?
Okay.
He wasn't going. Okay, next fan letter, please. Yeah.
Number 3, hello, Stephen. Big fan here. If I sent you a lock of my hair, would you send me a lock of Wan-Wans?
What?
Well, if we can find it, yes.
Wow.
He may not want to part with it.
He may not.
Down into the singular is my goodness.
Yikes. That's all I can say.
And I see an international hand signal being given by one now.
I got plenty here.
Okay. Next fan letter, please, Valerie. Top 10 Switch fan letters.
Number 2, dear Switch, we know you're a Star Trek expert. Can you answer this for us? When it comes to Kirk and McCoy, who was the pitcher?
Kirk and McCoy. Who was the pitcher?
Okay, never mind. We're not a sports show.
Sulu.
Okay.
I think someone is a winner.
There was
leaving a mark.
There was a connect the dots there, and he connected them. Please, Val.
Oh, he did connect the dots with his answer. You need to go back and listen to that one.
Thinker. Next, is this the last question?
This is the last question.
Here we go.
Oh, thank God.
Fan letter.
Wow.
Dear Switch, if you were on a deserted island with only one TV show to watch, would it be Mannix or the Golden Girls?
Frank.
I think I would just look at the clouds drifting by and see what kind of shapes
that means Golden Girls. Okay. All right. You've made your choice. Well, there you go. We're going to have to spend about $50 to sweeten that baby up. But let's please. Okay. We're clapping because we love you. Well, thank you very much, Val, for reading off all the Switchy's fan mail.
Yeah, sorry you had to go through that, Val.
Thank you.
There you go.
Me too.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Man.
Ouch.
What is with this?
That was a rough one.
Yeah, really.
See, I did not get the memo on that one.
Oh, that would have been. I was going to say that
would have been a good night to have a secret mission.
Yeah, really. It would have killed the bit if you knew what was coming. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we mercifully take a commercial break now? And we'll be right back. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We'll be right back after this.
Who's flying ghost airplanes over the city of Los Angeles? Why are the northern lights appearing over America in the daytime? How can an entire fleet of warships suddenly disappear at sea? Find out in Mack Maloney's new book, Battle of the Wingmen, number 20 in the best-selling Wingman series. Follow the adventures of Hawk Hunter as he and his friends sail the world's largest aircraft carrier into the vast unknown. Can Hawk save America from an attack by a mysterious Asian army? Who is the mysterious redhead haunting his dreams? And who will win the dogfight of the century? Who is the best fighter pilot in the world? Who really is Top Gun? Find out in Wingman number 20, Battle of the Wingmen by Mack Maloney. On sale now on Amazon and at bookstores everywhere.
Welcome back, everyone, to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. Wow, what a show we have for you tonight. But first, let's introduce the party. Girls, the very famous Wan is here.
Hello, girls. Hello, Mac. How's it going?
Looking very dapper.
Dapper.
Now, I
wouldn't consider myself dapper.
Really? I'm seeing
maybe hip and cool.
Okay, so this is I gotta throw this out there because I know these shows are supposed to be timeless, but there was a big turnover, sea change, as they say in New England sports this Sunday, and what it was, no more Tom Brady for 20 years. We've had Tom Brady winning for the Pats. He's gone, and we bring in Cam Newton, who is a very flamboyant guy, as it turns out. But
he's like Prince on steroids.
Yes, if Prince was a football player, he'd be Cam Newton. Really, really, right? Now the thing is that
as long as he's winning,
as long as he's winning, if you can be anyone if you keep winning, especially in New England. Okay, but once you take that one stumble, it's a long fall. So I'm wondering now. You and Tom had a long thing going together, right?
We did
bromance. Is this a switch now? You gonna switch? Are you gonna?
I had mixed feelings watching him in his game, and
terrible.
At first, I was saying "Hooray for Tom Brady,"
and then
after about 8 minutes went by, I was saying, "I hope he screws this up."
He was not. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah,
and I felt guilty about it all the way too.
Really? Yeah,
I
that
did.
guilt. Yeah,
you should.
You should. Anyway,
you see him with his helmet. He had his hands like this. He was like pounding his helmet.
Yeah, he's talking to his wife, Gizzle. So anyway,
Gizzle
up there in the compound.
Oh man,
Coco, how you doing, Commander Cobra?
Very good, sir. Thank you once again for letting me join the formation.
Mm-hmm.
You betcha. We mean let you.
He sent me an interesting picture the other day. This is really for military geeks, but he sent me a picture of, it was one of those E-Stars, right? But it had a refueling drogue on it. You have to be really into it if you know this.
I'm sorry, Mac. I had a little breakup when you were asking the question one more time.
You sent me a picture of one of those EC...
EC-135s,
right.
That's correct.
And it had a fuel drogue on the end of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because they converted over from the KC-135 for the most part. So a lot of times they would leave that as part of the structure up. I don't know if they did it also for deception, so that if it was seen parked on the ground, that it made for a more convincing argument that it wasn't doing that. And I've heard some stories where they may have actually been able to refuel.
Yeah,
as part of their mission, that they could still put that down.
Oh, that's just
I've never been able to verify that.
But that's a sexy thing, though. If you have one of those, I mean, one of these airplanes, they're basically a huge eavesdropping plane, and
that's the electronics intelligence calculator. Right.
But they also have a refueling drogue at the end of it that they can refuel other planes in the air, and
really?
That's a cool secret mission. You know what I mean? Yeah. You get your fighters, you get the anyway.
That is versatile.
Thank you, Coco, for joining us.
Yeah.
As always.
Okay. Let's go up the totem pole here. Okay. Our national. This will take the half hour. Our national correspondent, Switchblade Steve Ward, Switchy.
Switchy,
great
with us.
to be here tonight.
Yeah. We're kind of disappointed in you. We were having a little chat off air in between segments.
We were disappointed?
Yeah.
Because of your yogurt. Yikes. What kind of yogurt was it? He doesn't know.
Strawberry.
Oh.
I think.
Okay.
I like that flavor the best.
Really?
I didn't have any blueberry left.
There's a lot of sugar in it, though.
Yep. Okay. Let's go around the horn. Our security chief is joining us tonight. Willy Clubb from beautiful Methuen, Massachusetts.
Hey, Mac.
How you
folks?
Hey, Clubb. How's it going?
He's in his Patriots gear.
Right.
Okay.
You bet. I'm in the mood.
He's in the mood. Speaking about in the mood, our favorite empath is with us, Valerie LaFaso. Valerie, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Very happy to be here.
Really?
It's good to see you.
Would you say if you weren't?
No, Valerie's very truthful. You kidding me?
Not on the air.
Oh, not on the air. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Can you take a pulse on the show tonight, empath-wise? How are we going? How are we doing?
It's good so far.
So far, okay.
So far, so good.
We just started. Okay.
Pretty positive vibes coming out of everybody.
Really? Okay.
We're happy as clams.
Well, that's good. clams being...
Why did a clam be so happy? What
are they? They don't have to do anything all day. That's why. They just sit in the ocean and then get eaten.
And get dug up.
And then get fried, if you know what I mean. So, listen, I just want to say that 2 weeks ago, Willy Clubb did a presentation on reincarnation in soldiers, and we've got a lot of reaction for them, Willy, as it turns out.
We got reactions from people who really knew their stuff.
Not surprised, there's a lot of veterans out there and who've witnessed a lot of different things in combat. So I would expect that they'd find some interest in that subject.
It touched a lot of people because I think it happens more often than we think it does, But these
I agree.
The military reincarnation. So, I just want to pass that on to you. That's your fan letter, Clubb.
Well, I like that.
Okay.
I like fan letters.
Okay, yes.
I can't compete with the rest of yours, but that's okay.
The fan letter has rolled in. Yeah, nothing can. Switch is the. He's the G spot of the show. He gets more fan letter than anything else. Anyway, Coco, you want to? Should we jump right in on this?
Yeah, if you like to, sir.
Okay.
Kind of.
Have you been?
I'm interested. Are we going to go in the order that you kind of briefed it? Because I think that you proceeding on the Hobart might be a better setup to how I'm going to approach the assignment.
Okay. Okay, so what we're talking about is that Vietnam War lasted for a long time. Okay, there was times of very intense combat in the middle, and then it kind of drained away in a way, and it started slow. But anyway, in the late '60s, early '70s, it seems weird now, but the United States had like 500,000 men in Vietnam, and they also had like another 500,000 men in Thailand, and not Laos, but in the area. So they had almost close to 1 million men fighting this war. And, but it was in a very kind of compressed area anyway. So they had a lot of problems with soldier morale. I always have to feel like I have to, preface it with, there was a lot of drug problems in Vietnam. Basically, you went there for a year. If you can make it through the year, you're home free. Okay, and there's
not always. You could do multiple tours.
If you were insane, but
you
there was no
volunteer for that. You were volunteered.
There's no front lines, and so anyway, so a lot of weird stories came out of Vietnam. Is what I'm trying to say. But the one that we're going to talk about tonight, these are the ones that kind of make sense in a very odd way. So the first one is this Australian ship. It's a cruiser called the Hobart. Okay, His Majesty's Royal Australian Ship Hobart, and the Australians were our allies during the Vietnam War. So, what the thing about Vietnam too is there was North Vietnam and South Vietnam, and in between there was a thing called the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. What was it 30 miles wide, Coco? 30 miles something. No one ever paid attention to it, but
it was the whole border of North and South Vietnam, and then, of course, it butted up against going into Laos and Cambodia and part of the Ho Chi Minh Trip.
And the North Vietnamese, they did not, look at this as a non-demilitarized zone. So what happened is, we're really kind of face to face. So over this DMZ late in the summer of 1968, they start picking up radar blips. Now, the one thing about the North Vietnamese is that, they had jets, but they didn't have helicopters. We had thousands of helicopters, but they just didn't have helicopters in the war. They might have a few, but they weren't in the war. But when they started picking up these unusual blips, the military being what they were, they started calling them enemy helicopters. But they're zipping around at supersonic speeds. So they don't know what's going on. So they move. So the Americans move a lot of anti-aircraft stuff up to the northern, up to this DMZ, and they also put squadrons of airplanes way up north, right? And they keep an eye on these things. So one night they see, they see it in a bunch of nights, but now they're on this ready, and they see, like 4 or 5 of these things flying around. So they launched the F-4 Phantom jets. Okay, now in the meantime, the U.S. command in Vietnam has sent out this, APO to all of our allies, everyone, saying, well, listen, there's going to be some kind of operation going on over the DMZ tonight. If you're patrolling off in the Gulf of Tonkin, if you can be around the DMZ zone, that would help us out in case anything goes, who knows, right? Okay? This is how they do the thing. So this Australian cruiser said, yeah, we can do it. So they're patrolling off the DMZ when this is happening. So then they launch these jets, and they think they're going to go up against, like North Vietnamese fighters or something. But they're UFOs, and they're chasing them around, for a while. And they go out over the sea, and they shoot at them, and the missiles hit the Australian ship and kill 3 guys and injure like 50.
Wow.
Sidewind the missiles, boom, boom, like this. The Australians start shooting back at the Phantoms. It's a mess. No one knows what's going on. But when the smoke clears and the sun comes up, it turns out that these, that they attacked one of our allied ships. They thought that they were shooting at UFOs. So this story had no play at all in the United States. In Australia, they made a big deal out. Not a big deal, but they reported on it. They said this is what happened and this is what happened, and they weren't North Vietnamese. What were they shooting at and that type of thing. They bring the ship back to Australia. They refurbish it, but it never goes on duty again. It always just stayed back in Australia, and then they sank it as an artificial reef.
What?
When you get rid of it. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that's the Hobart story. What a weird story. And for it not to be reported very much over here in the United States, because, man, I would have
heard such a thing.
I would have heard that. Yeah, you would have seen it. Would have been a big deal. Now, the other thing, too, is that the guy who was in charge of the 7th Air Force in Vietnam at the time, his name was, I think, Gerald Brown. Okay. He later went on to be the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Okay. He was the top military guy in the world. But he would give speeches every once in a while. And he'd say, hey, listen, we used to see, UFOs and stuff over Vietnam all the time. And, it was the same thing. Well, they, secret weapon, we don't know, and we had a water fight. We didn't, we couldn't pay attention to them. So there you go. That's the Hobart incident. Coco, how about that? Did I get all the facts right?
Yeah, it's not unusual. Sadly, that this occurs. Blue-on-blue type engagements happen. The Coast Guard had deployed a small number of ships. One in particular, the future Commandant of the Coast Guard was the CO was attacked in the Mekong River Delta area where they were on patrol as part of the Brownwater Navy. And there was no UFO. There's no real mysterious connection here. It's just that they didn't identify the boat. And as a U.S. vessel, they weren't really well schooled at that point for the size of that vessel. So these things do occur. The setup to this I find really compelling because of the different reports of lights and the activity that they had and they were going around. It was obvious that a number of nights together is what set that up and caused it to bring it to bear. The other thing that's interesting on the situation with the helicopters, as you noted, Mack, it's very few times that the North Vietnamese actually were using any kind of helicopter capability. If there was helicopters from the North or the North Vietnamese forces, they were most likely Russian, then Soviet-backed operations that were going on. They did not have a very robust helicopter force. Most of their intent was on the fighter side of operations that they were trained and were using. So as a case, there is a rather tragic element in regards to not reporting on it very much. Because of being at fault, it doesn't surprise me that the U.S. wanted to keep this one on a lower scale or a lower amount of beating. The Liberty, the U.S. Navy vessel that had an engagement with the Israelis, has still talked about, and it doesn't have a lot of coverage either.
Right.
That's usually what happens when you have allies that get involved in a blue-on-blue. Besides the embarrassment and all the other activities, they're trying not to give any kind of erosion to the
Yeah, but let me just, can I
Desert
just ask
Storm,
you?
Desert Shield.
Can I ask you something about that, though? That the Liberty incident, okay, which, I bet you a lot of people probably don't know about it. Basically, during the 6-Day War in 1967, which is when the Israelis they just kicked ass on 10 different countries, and all of a sudden they were the superheroes. They were they were the good guys. And it lasted for 6 days. Now, in the Suez Canal, I think is where it happened. The U.S. Navy had this intelligence gathering ship. It was a ship that was a weather reconnaissance ship, but it was like just full of antennas and stuff. Same kind of ship, I think, that was captured off of Korea. But anyway, so Israeli jets attacked it, and really kind of did a job on it, killed a bunch of people, and then they came back 2 hours later and they attacked it again. So it seems like in that 2 hours that you'd be able to sort out that the first one was a mistake. So a lot of people thought, well, they thought we were listening in on what was going on, with their command structure during the war, and this is how you put a stop to it. I don't know, but it was definitely the weirdest blue on blue you'd ever.
Yeah, and it was never really well publicly declared why that went the way it did. I've met a couple of the survivors from the Liberty to this day hold a very, very strong negative view with what went on. I don't think there was ever really good clarification. They can't talk much about the mission that they were doing even to this day as an electronics surveillance ship was going on. There's been a wide range of rumors in that particular one covering the whole thing. Mm-hmm. The thing to keep in mind is we were engaged in Southeast Asia when that occurred. So multiple fronts of activity going on. Mm-hmm. And it was a big contest between the Soviet Union in the United States, and there's some conditions you could say NATO was involved in this.
Right.
And some think that maybe there was a need that Liberty was there to keep track of how far and how fast the Israelis were going to go to not knock it into too great an imbalance. The Israelis did a real number on the Egyptian and Jordanian air forces, but especially the Egyptian Air Force, because they caught most of the aircraft out in the open. And after that, because of that war, because of that engagement, that's when you start to see hardened shelters called TAB-Vs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Aircraft ballistic shelters that started to come up that could take a couple direct hits. Mm-hmm. They would crumble and affect the Air Force because they basically lost their Air Force.
Also, when they fought again like 6 years later in 1973, the Egyptians, the Arab armies, had lots and lots and lots of SAM missiles. The first time you really, they used to use SAM missiles in Vietnam, but this was like barrages of them. They shot down a lot of Israelis, and what they did was the Egyptians actually came across the Suez Canal, and now they're in the Sinai Desert, which technically belongs to the Israelis, right?
No, it's actually the other way around, Mac. It's gone back and forth. I believe the Israelis were holding the territory at that time from the war. They retook it, and then they lost it again.
Well, that's what I mean.
Later
yeah.
engagement.
So the Egyptians invade the Sinai, right? So what the Israelis going from this part of the Suez Canal to what the Israelis do, go in the back door, and they invade Egypt. They go across the other way of the Suez Canal, and they surround them and win the war. I mean, the Israelis are kind of cool in a way, I mean, who would think of doing that? I mean, they just, because they're a small nation. I don't agree with everything they do, but they're a small nation. Good thing we're their friend because most of the stuff that they have is U.S. military supplied. But, you can almost see what their mind is like because they're completely surrounded by enemies, completely, up until the last few days. But you know what I mean? And the people who are just... their whole goal is to do something bad to Israel or whatever, not to get into politics, whatever. But when it comes to war, or for the most part, they'll think out of the box and they'll wind up winning, and that, I think that kind of, is a lesson to be learned there. How's that, Coco?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, you're looking at a nation that pulled off Entebbe, and one of the greatest raids ever done.
Right. So, yeah, we talk about it real quick. I mean, this a bunch of Israeli passengers were hijacked, brought to Uganda, at the Entebbe airport, and that's when Idi Amin was this kind of crazy big guy cannibal who ran the country, and they were holding him for about, I don't know, how long they hold him for there, Coco? Maybe a month?
Yeah, it was pretty dire straits. The threat obviously was going to be execution of the Israelis. They separated out the passengers to the Israelis. And the tough part was to get them and to make that raid, they couldn't go with any kind of fire escort, and they had to come up with a way not. And it was probably one of the greatest missions ever flown by C-130s.
Right.
It's up there with Sante and the capability of what they did.
So they have three.
And they got everyone except for a couple people out.
Right. They have 3 cargo planes. All right. And they dress them up to make them look like Ugandan cargo planes. Now, in one of the planes, they have a Mercedes-Benz. All right. And the rest of them are full of special operations guys. So they land.
Right.
And they let the Mercedes-Benz go out from the back.
Perfect.
And the guards think that Idi Amin is in the Mercedes-Benz because he owns the only Mercedes-Benz in Uganda. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And then they go, okay, it's him. And then next thing you know, boom. And they come in and they rescued, I think they might have killed one hostage maybe, and then they left one in the hospital.
Yeah, one hostage was taken away. That was the older woman that was taken to the hospital.
Yeah.
It's been pretty much they executed her after the successful fall of the raid.
They freed the rest.
I believe they lost 1 or 2 hostages in the actual recovery, and the Israelis, I think, lost about 5 or 6 people.
And one of the people who got killed was the brother of the guy who now runs Israel. Okay, who's been like in and out of indictments or whatever. But anyway, it's a cool story. I mean, these guys, they actually did it, and they put this together in like 24 hours, and they did it, and they had to fly 5,000 miles. It wasn't like right around the corner. So anyway, hey, Coco, ever hear about the second raid of Entebbe?
I believe I have.
Oh, what? They went back for the luggage?
That's awful.
Inappropriate. Okay, so
Way
listen.
inappropriate. Jeez.
Should we cut that out?
Yeah.
Coco, you're up.
That's all right. I'm going to light another candle in the menorah here. It'll be okay, Matt.
Light one for me, too, will you?
Start the festival light a little bit early this year.
Go ahead, there, Cokie.
So on my assignment from Mack on this, I'd like to also note that Mack sent me an absolutely fantastic video description of the whole part in this P-52 that we're going to talk about. It was it's almost like a graphic novel, the way it was set up and the way they do the pictures and the animation for it. And on this one, it's a little bit less, to me, a clear-cut case because of the fact that it's very difficult to verify some of the claims that have gone on. So what we have is a P-52 that goes down, and it crashes in Laos, which was really an area that we weren't supposed to be in, but we ran extensive operations in as a part of a means to protect the Laotian government, which was trying to maintain its sovereignty, as well as cut parts of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was the great supply route that was going through that part of the world and was supplying the forces itself, with the belief that if they could cut it off and they could stop that supply, it would grind the war to a halt and get the war concluded much more quickly. There is some merit to that discussion. There's also some merit to why did we just take everything out of the war that came in, but because it involved Soviet and communist Chinese vessels, was a fear of escalation. This P-52 crashes, and the report, unsubstantiated sadly, is that they were intercepted by lights that sound very similar to the description that you hear in the Hobart incident, that surrounded and flew in formation and around the B-52 as it was returning from a mission. It subsequently has a very quick break in communications, and then the aircraft disappears off radar and enter in a Green Beret captain, United States Army, last name English is reported as the name. And his team, which would have been an A team, an ODA A team, was dispatched to go and do the recovery. So obviously the recovery portion is very important, is because they want to make sure that they get all the sensitive materials gathered as best they possibly can. Now, in general, you would expect that if this was the reason that they want to make sure that they've recovered the sensitive materials, you'd ask, well, why didn't they worry about that on other B-52s and other airplanes that crashed when the crew ejected out? And I'll circle back to that. So keep that one in mind. The team is dispatched. They have to go a long distance. In the report that Mack sent me, there's some inconsistencies that come up on the distance and how they explain how far they traveled and what the leader of this Green Beret team reports that he did. But they got as close as to where they believe the aircraft had gone down, and they had to walk in some distance. That's pretty normal for the Green Berets and Special Operations Forces like that. They went in, and what they found is they found a B-52 that was nearly intact sitting in the jungle. Now, there isn't any photographs that are available, which is not surprising. And the description is now legendary, that it immediately is described as the B-52 looks fairly intact. It's sitting in the jungle. And the takeaway that you're supposed to gather is that it came down almost like it came straight down, that it came down into the jungle and is amongst the trees. Because normally, as you would expect, with any kind of forward velocity, the aircraft would come in, it'd start shearing trees, it would hit the ground, it'd start
all over the
breaking
place.
apart. It would be a large area,
Yeah.
and most likely you'd have a fire or something that would.
And the plane would be badly damaged.
Further, and the plane would be broken up. So they're surprised to find the plane intact, according to this one leader of the A team that is in there. All the doors are closed. They have to actually blow one of the hatches, one of the doors open to get into the aircraft. And when you get into the aircraft, it reports that it looked like it was still in flight, the way the gear and the notes and the materials around the different crew members were. But the crew is greatly traumatized. They have a lot of physical deformation to them while they're in their seats, like they were torn apart, is the words that he is reported to have used in the description. It greatly shakes him. They gather the materials. They grab the dog tags of the crew. They can't take the bodies with them. They leave charges behind. They hear the aircraft blow up as they're departing the area. They meet their helicopters. They go back. They go to the debrief. The captain says that in the debrief, he's treated very hostilely to what he has seen and what he's reporting and what he brought back. And very quickly after that, he is dispatched from Vietnam, no longer operating in that theater, taken away from his team. He's sent to an assignment in the UK, and he's told at a later date that his team was killed in combat. They're all dead, and they died in an operation after he left. It further goes on that when he stayed and when he left the Army, he was somewhat terrorized. He claims that he had people confront him about his experience in this particular case with the B-52. Further, that he was met by two men on a motorcycle that shot multiple rounds from a machine gun into his house in the United States. At that point, he partially goes underground. He changes his name and takes a job at a television station. How the story finishes up when I complete my research. A couple things I'm going to bring out that I have some issues with it. The case of the report on this, which is a little unusual to me, is I went back and I checked. 17 B-52s were lost in the Southeast Asian conflict to combat-related activity. And the only one that came down in Laos, when I checked the number, doesn't even come close to matching this particular condition. Now, I don't say that this is something I would just throw out to say that this dismisses the case, because if this is as sensitive as I suspect it could have been, especially if it engages in this area, someone would have taken the time to make sure that they had gone through all the places to make sure that they matched up, or the official record doesn't reflect what officially happened. So that doesn't surprise you, but it is one of those things that doesn't add up. Also, the descriptions that are used by the captain and is said to be the Green Beret captain don't completely match up either in my experience. Meaning, pulled off the A team doesn't surprise me, but that community is very small, and that's a network where people stay in touch and people would know. So to say that his entire team was killed afterwards, after he left, just doesn't seem to link up very well. That he couldn't have gotten more information out of it.
Sounds like a movie.
Sorry, sir?
Sounds like a movie in a way.
It does. And the whole story is taken on very legendary status of what happened, what occurred. There's also some reports that when this description had come out, that the then Soviets, Russians, described to someone in this officially that they had a similar occurrence with one of their aircraft. Again, it's a nice thing to add into it, but it doesn't seem to really match up to the experience where the Soviets are extremely, then Soviets, and even today the Russians, they can be somewhat circumspect for ever releasing that kind of information and comparing it back and forth. Another area that I had some problem with is that they did not have fighters available to drop munitions on it. That was the standard way of handling a downed aircraft, especially if it had sensitive materials. So you'd go in, you'd do your assessment, see if anyone was alive with the crew. So to set up this team to send it in, if it occurred, then there was something very special that happened on this B-52. So if that part is true, if that part is accurate, then the whole trailing back to a UFO encounter and wanting to find out what happened and to see what happened lends credibility to it. There's just some holes in it and the story that goes through. And as I said, when I checked the going through the records, it doesn't quite add up. But that doesn't surprise me that, again, if this is as sensitive as we think it might be, that they would change and alter records on the way going through. It is in the middle of Project Grudge. This is a Project Grudge kind of thing that would have been a perfect one to run.
Oko, is this the basis of this thing is that supposedly the UFOs took this bomber down. They didn't shoot it. There's some way that it was. Well,
that would be one of the possible conclusions based on what is provided as evidence. I won't say as fact, but as evidence. They make a report that they have been engaged by lights, very similar to what we talked about in the Hobart. Then the communications break off. The B-52 no longer is seen on radar. It disappears, which would have happened very quickly in Laos. And then at that point, it drops down. Again, some of the areas, Clubb, that throw off is when in the information that was provided that Mack and I were going through, they talked about how this is very remote and how few forces were there. We had a huge presence in Laos. I worked for a person that was called a Raven at that time, and the Ravens were people that flew small Cessna-based forward air control airplanes that were fighting a very, very engaged war there. So they would have had some capability around. There's also a thing called Rascals. Rascals were teams of Laotians that were led by Americans that were basically intel gathering teams. They would be inserted by helicopters. They would go to their location. They may even do some sapper type work. So you would have had people. So if there was a high sensitivity to this aircraft and trying to find it, they would have had other forces pretty quickly available to go do that. Yep. So this is another area where the story falls a little bit of miscalculation. But if I was to step back and say, understanding Project Grudge, the lack of the paper trail, this story that's coming out that now has legendary status, this is typical to misdirection or misinformation that was purposely done to either feed into saying that it was a UFO and something else occurred, or if it does have the sensitivities of what we think might be a UFO engagement, they were never going to confess to it anyways. They were going to use layers of it and just realize, look, this is a very sexy way to wrap this up.
Yes.
And put lots of layers of paper so people are going to go off in different directions. I can't believe that at this date and time, if this captain, Green Beret, is still alive, or in all the years interim, has not come forward under the blackened silhouette and given another recounting of this. I've never heard this show up at any of the UFO conferences, and this is a real rarity. But this is one of those legendary repeats out of the Vietnam era.
Did they recover the bodies on the plane?
No, they say just the dog tags, according to the ODA team, the A team that went into the aircraft.
Right.
And then blew it up.
Which would have make sense.
Right.
And then they blew it up after they left because, and the condition of the bodies reported was, that they were in grievous condition, like something had torn them up.
Right. Valerie seems to have a question. Valerie, please.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I was just, processing the whole story. There's a lot of definitely odd things about that story, and I'm not a military person, so I don't know how these things work. Is it typical that you would blow up a downed aircraft like that?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Standard procedure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to let the enemy have anything out of that.
Right.
Okay.
You don't want the ability for anything like it, not so much that they would ever put the B-52 back in the air. In some cases, some aircraft, that's what they're concerned about. But you don't want to let them have looks at the radio gear. Remember, the B-52 and those aircraft were representative of the whole nuclear deterrent.
Yep.
So the gear that's on board there allows re-engineering or backward engineering or dissecting it down that they could get important parts out of it, including codes and cheats and all the other things that were there. That's part of the reason why they sent that team into the recovery.
Is there anything about the bodies were torn apart? Is there anything about what they think did that, considering the airplane was not in rough condition? So why would the bodies be torn apart?
Right, and they're in their seats as the report goes. They look like they're still in their flight position. And as Clubb says, it sounds like what's being intimated here in this description is that whatever the UFO did to them, if this is truly the encounter, it froze it in space and it dropped it straight down into the ground in a fairly intact. And then inside, the air crew is in this position. Again, what we're now debating or discussing is supposition because it's not presented as fact. You don't have photographs. You don't have even like a detailed report to look at and say, okay, the accident investigation report, which I spent a part of my career doing. It was a fairly detailed part of it. There was no Air Force representatives, according to this, that went with them on this to do any kind of an assessment, which is unusual as well.
One thing that bothers me on that is the bodies. Yes. Normally, we don't leave anyone behind, but of course, in those cases, they have to. But my understanding is that normally, in a case like that, those bodies would have been buried. They wouldn't have just
they wouldn't
put
have
a
bombed
bomb
them
inside the plane.
Yep.
Buried those bodies.
Yep.
They usually respect the physical bodies of the deceased soldiers, and they would take them out and bury them before they left, and then blow up.
In general, Clubb, I would agree with that. In the situation that this is going with, especially in something with the type of situation they have and how it's portrayed, it's fair to say that is an inaccuracy as the story is reported as you're putting it. But it wouldn't surprise me in the kind of a special operations world, especially in a place we're not supposed to be, where the aircraft is not supposed to be, that the quickest and most expedient way to take care of them would be to incinerate the aircraft with their bodies in it. And we have done that in the past. That is not unusual that occurs. If they can't get the body, they do not want it to fall into enemy hands. And that's happened in the past.
The good example of, would you bomb the, aircraft, if you couldn't use it anymore to keep it out of enemy hands when they went after, they got Osama bin Laden, one of those helicopters, stealth helicopter, crashed coming over. They brought in the other helicopter to take everyone out, and then they did their best to try to destroy that thing. That thing had to cost several $100 million, I would say. But they would rather blow it up.
Because of the sensitivity of the airframe, they did not want that to fall behind.
Rather blow it up than
that fell on the outside of that wall was seen by everyone.
Right, yeah. So
was there a lot of activity, UFO activity reported during Vietnam? Not necessarily encounters of this kind of detail, but were they used to seeing strange lights or craft that they couldn't identify, or was that an anomaly?
No. And no kidding how I put this. If you go back to Mack's books concerning about UFOs in wartime, one of the psychological and Val, you probably can weigh in this with more expertise and more sensitivity, because of the heightened state that you find soldiers, people that are engaged in war, even the civilians that are engaged in it, all through history. Even going back into the Bible, there seems to be a lot of activity around large battles. areas where huge human emotion and endeavor is pitched to high stakes. This continues right now into Afghanistan and Iraq. And believe me, I spent most of my time in Iraq flying at night with a fairly sophisticated sensor, hoping I would see something.
Yes.
Didn't see anything, but I heard plenty of reports of strange activities. Now, some of those strange activities were the types of helicopters and some of the other more specialized aircraft that you find out later on in Osama bin Laden raid and some other activities. I am sure we're getting their shakeouts and their operational expertise owned in places like Iraq and Afghanistan for needed missions, but also in a much more benign environment to help build that up, get that capability. But it doesn't surprise me that in combat-related situations, in stressful situations, that people have a heightened state that allows their sensitivity to see stuff. But to be fair, and I sent this to Mack, look at where we are in the world right now with all the tensions in the world right now. Just recently, a Goodyear blimp was flying along underneath the cloud line in New Jersey, and thousands of people thought it was a UFO and got out, took pictures, and had a mass discussion.
Is that right?
And it's all over social media. And, people are going, it's the Goodyear blimp.
Started shooting at it.
People wanted it to be a UFO.
People wanted it to be a UFO.
Mac, wasn't there a really strange report of a giant or something like that in Vietnam at one time? I thought it was in more recent years. That's all I can remember about it.
Well, there's a report that there is a Yeti Sasquatch type vehicle type animal that has been called their Sasquatch. Is it just a mountain gorilla that engaged? I will tell you one of the most interesting, chilling stories, and it really spooked the troops for a while. Teams like we're talking about.
Yes.
And guy screams and he's taken out and he disappears and they can't find him. They look everywhere. And then when they do find him later, they find parts of him up in a tree. And everyone is completely freaked out what's going on because they know that this is not a VC or a North Vietnamese kind of tactic. This is not the way they're operating. What it turns out to be is, because they have a couple more occasions where it happens, it's a tiger. And the tiger is moving around in the dark. That's the reason why it's in the movie Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
Because that did occur a number of times when they were, especially on long-range patrols, and the tiger, you're in his element, or her element as the case may be, moving around the jungle. And those are fairly solitary animals and was taking out troops.
Wow. Go to Vietnam.
Tony the tiger for me, I'll tell you
That's heartwarming.
Tony the tiger. Yes,
I think anybody
Switch.
said it was terrific.
To answer your question, there was a story in UFOs in Wartime on sale everywhere still about this guy who was in a firefight in the middle of a field somewhere, and he got separated from his helicopter unit, and he said a giant came out and helped him.
That's right.
Hold off in Viet Cong or North Vietnamese till he could get on the helicopter and fly away. So,
wow.
Who knows? Valerie, can we have another empath pulse taking, please?
I mean, it's still good. Those are really interesting stories. And, the one you just said about the giant coming out and helping. I've heard stories from other people of beings that aren't quite human, but are almost human, appearing out of nowhere and assisting, when their car has broken down or whatever. So that kind of reminds me of that. And nobody knows if those are ETs or
what they
ghosts or interdimensional something or other. Those stories are really interesting.
A lot of
there was even a bizarre. I can't remember where the heck it was. They were dressed more like and looked like classic Men in Black, but they helped somebody with a car that was partially off the road. I'll have to find the source on that.
That wasn't one Mack and myself.
I was going to say
from one of our get-togethers in Boston.
Could have been us.
It could have been.
So you're saying you guys look kind of creepy when you help people out on the road?
Yes.
Yes.
Depends. Yes. I guess that's.
What else you want to know?
I'm just trying to put it together.
Okay. All right.
Could have been the parking lot of the Thirsty Moose.
Come on, will you please? We went down there for the first time in a year and a half tonight, as it turned out.
Was it?
We were shunning them. Yeah, okay. A year.
Sure.
One got us kicked out a year and a month ago.
It was just a year because I was there a year
You
ago.
were there, right. It was right after that. Right. You had a tantrum. Over the chicken wings. Anyway.
Chicken wings.
Uh-huh. So anyway, Coco, let me just say one last thing, okay, about this. And I know that a lot of strange things happened in Vietnam. A lot of strange things were seen in Vietnam because it was like the first, you don't want, Korea was one thing, but in Vietnam, everyone had radars. Everyone had, electronic stuff, and you could see stuff and you could see it on radar and so on and so forth. And so a lot of stuff was flying around up there, that normally, but people did see a lot of strange things. But just to end the segment really quick, I know this happened for a fact because a family member told me this. As I said before, you had a lot of guys in Vietnam, but you had a lot of guys, like, for instance, in Thailand, too, okay? And they would do airstrikes from Thailand and so on.
Yeah. And
also you would be officially because at one point 500,000 was like a limit. You couldn't go above that limit. They would so they would put you in Thailand, and then you would go over to Vietnam, and you would be there for 29 and a half days. Then you'd go back, and they didn't have to count you.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but this person told me
it's like
that
the roster and salary cap in football.
Exactly right. They send you down on
they put you in the IR temporarily and bring you back up.
Funny. So they had this airplane out there called the F-111, which was a swing-wing big fighter plane in the 60s, and its wings would swing back when it was going very fast, forward on straight when it was doing bombing runs, and so on. It was like whiz-bang, kind of controversial, but they used them in Vietnam. And they were the first airplane that really had autopilots where you could kind of push a button and go and come, and they'd do everything. They had these terrain guidance things and so on. You could punch in the mission and just go. So these guys are out at night doing a mission, and anti-aircraft got them right in this little capsule they sat in. They were dead. The plane was okay, and the plane came back.
What?
Yeah, with the two dead guys in it.
Because it was on autopilot?
It was on the auto computer, push a button and go. Anyway, Vietnam is a weird place. A lot of strange stuff happened in Vietnam, above paranormal and not. There was a part of Saigon, a good-sized part of Saigon that all it was AOL soldiers from the United States, and they just let them live there. A lot of them were into drugs and stuff. So. Apocalypse Now, my favorite movie. Deer Hunter, not my favorite movie. Is it Deer Hunter?
I liked Apocalypse Now better.
Yeah, Apocalypse Now was just out of control, and that's what the whole kind of war was about. Yep.
I've never been in Vietnam, but that looked pretty realistic based on what I read and heard.
Right.
I like Platoon myself.
Platoon was good, too.
Platoon's one of the best movies ever made. And it just happens to be about Vietnam. That's one of the best movies ever made. That's one of those movies you see it on TV. Just got to watch it. There's some scenes in that. And Charlie Sheen, I've said it before, whatever road you went down, he was really good in that. You could, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. So
I haven't seen much of the way of Vietnam movies, but give me Where Eagles Dare and The Great Escape.
Great Escape's Great Escape's a great movie. Yep. Really good. And
Steve McQueen, motorcycle.
Yep. James Garner was in it. He flies the plane out, and it was
and Elmer Bernstein's music score, phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a really good. With those, you won't see movies like that anymore. They'd make these 2.5, 3 hour great movies, The Longest Day, and stuff like that. And I'm
going to recommend to get the Great Escape on DVD. The more recent version has another DVD with all the extras. It tells about how they found the location and just all the ins and outs. A lot of commentaries. It's really
I love that
excellent.
stuff.
Yeah,
and I love the extras.
Really thoroughly covers that
commentaries.
movie.
It's good they had that stuff. Yeah, it's a really good movie. If I can recommend a Vietnam book, if anyone's in a mood to read a book, it's a book going after Cacciato. This is real highbrow stuff now, Jasper. Ready? By an author named Tim O'Brien. And what it's about is a guy is this squad of troops in Vietnam. One of them goes AWOL. His name is Cacciato. And their squad leader said, go and get him and bring him back no matter what. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so they follow him all the way to Paris. It's true. Great book. Wow. As crazy as that sounds. That's great. Anyway, why don't we do this now? What do you say?
All right.
Okay. Why don't we take a commercial break now? This has been Mack's Book Corner.
I'll say. In bookstores everywhere.
Bookstores everywhere.
It was very fascinating, though.
Thank you, JJ. Why don't we take a commercial break now, and we'll be right back after this. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Miltrack Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We'll be right back with Dr. Bob Gross. Please stay tuned.
Where is the Sea of Moons? Is it on the moon? Or in a haunted part of the Pacific Ocean? Or is it just in our heads?
What if you dreamed of meeting a beautiful Irish girl, but she turned out to be a cop? What if you dreamed that you were on TV 24/7, but only the government knew the channel? And what if you dreamed you were shipwrecked on a deserted island and rescued by 5 lovely castaways, only to have some real pirates ruin the party? Then you should wake up and read The Sea of Moons, the latest installment in Mack Maloney's best-selling series, codename Starman. Follow the adventures of U.S. Navy's Special Agent Chris Starr as he travels the globe using his special ESP powers to solve top-secret mysteries. First in Ireland, then in Tahiti, and finally to Hollywood, where Chris and his girlfriend Angel discover the only spooks inside an old haunted house belong to the CIA. That's codename Starman, The Sea of Moons by Mack Maloney. On sale on Amazon and in bookstores everywhere.
Welcome back, everyone, to Mack Maloney's Miltrack Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. What a show we have for you tonight. But first, let me introduce the people at the party. Girls, if you're still here, he's still here. The very famous Juan Juan.
Hello, and why wouldn't they be here?
I don't know. You have to ask them.
This is dropping in. Hello, Mac. Hello, girls and guys, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Mack Maloney's Military X-Files Show.
Also up there in the Great White North, and his Compound Slash, a.k.a. Bunker. They know him as Coco on the street. We know him as Commander Cobra. Cokie.
Good evening, sir, and thank you so much once again for joining the formation. Be part of the team tonight.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. Hang on. I don't.
Cobra belongs on the team all the time.
I don't have my shades on. I knew something was wrong. That's much better. Up there in the Bowl of Flakes, Battle Creek, Michigan.
The Battle Creek of the Republic.
There you go. A national correspondent, Switchblade Steve Ward.
And it is great to be here tonight.
Had yogurt for breakfast today. Big disappointment.
You've been ragging on the yogurt. The poor guy likes yogurt, okay?
Hey, I've got a confession to make. I was traveling, and I got in late.
Yeah.
And when I woke up this morning, I wasn't even thinking that the show was tonight.
Whoa.
It was a little discombobulated
How
at first.
dare you?
So if I had done that, I might have made another choice, knowing that I would have to tell Mac that all I had was yogurt.
Right.
Also,
breakfast.
Mac,
yes,
you're totally dismissing the fact that he had a secret mission out to the compound this past weekend, and he enjoyed numerous breakfasts here, some of them which were prepared by myself as well as Mrs. Cope.
So you ruined them, in other words.
So you did a sleepover.
Kind of, Yeah, I mean, not everything pales by comparison, so you might as well just have yogurt for breakfast from now on.
Now it makes...
You had Cobra and Cat's all-you-can-eat buffet.
This.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Those turkeys, you had
adult
turkeys.
beverages.
Those turkeys wandering around your farm there?
And he had cats that were trying to sleep with him. So it was the full
one that
Monty.
was better than an electric blanket.
TMI.
But that was the first night. Second night, the little guy abandoned me.
Okay, that's a whole other show there, pal.
I was seduced and abandoned.
That's 2 more shows.
Cats will do that.
Can we move on? Our security chief, Willy Clubb, is witnessing all of this. Willy, how you doing?
You know, Mac, having a great time. Hi, gang.
Hello, Willie.
Good to hear. And also...
Yeah, it's a very electric night, I noticed.
Yes.
Very
You
electric.
notice when Willie says he's having a good time, sometimes you wonder if he really means it.
We get letters about that, too.
Who, me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I always mean it.
Do you? Okay. Just wanted to check.
Keeping her finger on the pulse of all this is our favorite empath, Valerie LaFaso. Valerie.
Hi, Valerie.
Hello. Thanks for having me once again.
Welcome to the
Glad
show.
to be here.
Good to see you again.
She hasn't said much tonight, JJ, and that gets me worried.
She's analyzing.
That gets me worried.
And then the post-game show that we have the next day, she gives us a jingle and tells us
this is a jingle.
Where she hit the dump button.
I'm constantly taking in information.
Really?
Sometimes hard for me to get it to come back out. So,
yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
She's like a parabolic microphone. Gets it from all directions.
Yeah.
See?
Pretty much.
There's a joke in there somewhere. I don't know. Okay, so. But. Our guest tonight, joining us from Chicago, I think, where they turned the river green on St. Patrick's Day, the second city. Dr. Bob Gross. Doctor, how are you doing, Doctor?
Hello, Mac. Thank you for inviting me again. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this evening.
It's always good to talk to you. And you're one of our favorite guests because you're a UFO researcher / musician, right?
Yes.
Okay. You got the musician look going on. What's good about you have your full head of hair and you get the beard going. You look like you're a jazz sax player.
Yeah. Perfect.
I was.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're still living the dream, in other words.
My disguise.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, so you have a new YouTube channel, right?
Yes, sir.
What's the name of it?
About 2 months ago, I became a YouTuber, and the title of my new channel is called "Explore the Exceptional with Dr. Gross."
Yes. Okay. All right. And what do you talk about on the show? Us?
Well, certainly, but basically, I've been talking about. Actually, I've been writing like 8 different scripts for different series, and coming up. Nice. But I'm talking about anomalous phenomena.
Yes. Okay. What's your latest? What's your latest script? Let's say. What's your latest?
Well, the most recent one that I did was just a while ago, and it was on how to take ufology and reform ufology.
Yes.
And I talked a little bit about how ufology has been built on a rather weak foundation, and it's time to reform it.
Huh. Okay, so you got the Martin Luther of... We're bragging about you off air that in the 60s you were a working musician that were making a good paycheck, right?
Yes.
Okay.
During the 60s and up until about 1975.
Really? Yeah. Okay. And what kind of car did you drive?
I drove a few. One of the ones I drove that was most I liked best was a Volkswagen Scirocco.
Oh,
those are sports car.
Yeah. Didn't you have a Corvette?
I had a Saab. No, the first car I ever owned, though, was a Triumph Spitfire.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
Nice.
It's a little tiny car.
Definitely.
That's what a jazz guy would get.
Yes. We all did.
Right. So, okay.
So
we were talking about your YouTube channel, and you just started this, and you were giving us an example of, like, what's one of the latest episodes?
Well, the most recent episode that I did had to do with reforming ufology.
Right.
And the title the series was Reforming Ufology, and the title of the episode was How Ufology Had a Weak Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking a little bit about that, after 70 years of ufology being around, we still really haven't answered a lot of the big questions out there.
Do you think it start? How did it start such that it had a weak foundation back in the late 40s, early 50s, where they were kind of stumbling around and didn't really know what was going on?
That'd be mafia cement, right?
The
cement shoes, baby.
The whole thing that happened in Roswell in 47, and that whole period during 47 when they were having the sightings and so forth, and
yes.
the flying saucers and all of that coming in, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of nervousness going on because the war had just ended. And the whole event that was going on in that whole New Mexico area was very unique. A lot of aerospace things and experiments were going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to live in New Mexico for like 8 years. And I was on a gang task force, the New Mexico Gang Task Force.
Really? Yes.
And we met in Roswell and trained in Roswell. So I got to talk to a lot of people that were there in Roswell. And it was very interesting what was going on, because the whole story with Roswell actually goes back to around 1942.
Okay.
And that's back when the Holloman Air Force Base was established as the Alamogordo Airfield.
Yep.
And then later on it became the Holloman Air Force Base.
Yes.
That was all happening around 1942 when that started. And then in 1946, there was the New York University and Watson Labs from the Air Material Command.
Yes.
They joined together into a contract to design high-altitude balloons.
Mm-hmm.
And in that contract, the high-altitude balloons had to be traceable by radar, and they had to, fly at a constant level.
Right.
So that was part of the contract, and that's how it all started.
Right. Yeah, no, that's all. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and we've talked about this on the show before. I don't believe anything extraordinary happened at Roswell. I think it was one of these balloons. In fact, all the evidence points to it was one of these balloons that were secretly being launched from nearby to fly over the Soviet Union with acoustic devices to see if the Soviets were lighting off nuclear bombs. I mean, it's as simple as that and as complicated as that. And I think General Mills, the cereal company, had something to do with launching the balloons. It was really kind of convoluted. But
it was sponsored by General Mills.
Somehow they were involved with launching the
Cheerio
balloon.
logo.
They had a Bullwinkle logo on it. But anyway, it's to piss off the Russians, But yeah. I mean, doesn't all the evidence really point to that, Dr. Bob? That it was just one of these balloons that were flying over there all the time.
You're exactly right. And General Mills was involved with making balloons. They had a lot of companies that were listed in making balloons.
Yes.
And what puzzles me is I've gone through the reports that were eventually released between 1994 and 1997, and it's all right there. Because, the contract that they signed with the Watson Labs and New York University, they had to come up with these balloons that were going to be traceable by radar, and the radar wasn't very good back then.
Mm-hmm.
So they started working with these balloons, and they started working with materials for the balloons back in 1946, where they eventually got to polyethylene, which hadn't been invented yet.
Yes.
So they were still working on that. But the balloon materials themselves, they were working on polyethylene, nylon, and silk. But because it was so hot in New Mexico, they had to put coatings on the balloons so that the balloons wouldn't deteriorate. So in order to do that, they were using neoprene, butyl rubber, and aluminum to coat them.
Oh, okay.
And the aluminum served a double purpose of being trackable.
Okay. And these things were flying around there a lot, and they would have these, if I remember right, they would have these, what they would call kites, and basically, the tail of the balloon. And at one point, I just read that these guys said, well, all we'd have to do is have some kind of, I don't want to use the word ballast, but like kind of balancing it out. And so they would just take pieces of balsa wood and like ribbon or wire or whatever, and they tie it together, and that would be the kite of the balloon. And they had guys saying, where'd you get the balsa wood? Well, we go down to this floral shop and, whatever city they were near, and the guy would have a lot of leftover balsa wood. And so we used that, and there were decals on it from where it came from, and like in Hong Kong or something like that. So when people found this balsa wood at Roswell, they said, hey, look at these hieroglyphics. Well, it was just kind of like a coding type thing. And also they found rope at the, quote-unquote crash site. And, why would a UFO have rope? And I should say, full disclosure, when that happened, there was a group who wanted to go down to the area and do what would be like a archaeological dig, where you'd go there and you'd do it in a scientific way, go square by square to see if you could find anything. And I volunteered to go down to do it. That's how much I was into it. But then I've changed my mind, ever since. Hey, let me just tell you this.
I have a question for
Bob.
Bob.
Go ahead, Switchy, please.
If you go back to 1952, Jim and Cora Lorenzen started the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. I remember them being interviewed in the mid-'70s on a show, and they said back in the early days, because they were kind of on the ground floor of this, that they really thought that this mystery was going to be solved within a few years. And, of course, here they were in the 70s still not really solving it, and now we're decades later, and it hasn't really been solved. Do you think any of the early efforts by some of the early organizations were on track, or were they kind of off track in the beginning to to where we haven't really perhaps recovered from it to where we do need to reform UFO investigation?
Well, again, this is my opinion based on my research, and all of the answers about the whole Roswell incident, which is really the cornerstone of ufology, are right out there in the Air Force reports. You just have to look for them. Like those two teams from New York University and from Watson Laboratories, they had two different kind of balloon flights that they let go and flew, because every flight was a new experiment, because they had what were called balloon trains, which were long trains of balloons. Then they had balloon clusters, which were clusters of balloons, and then they had singular balloons. That all of those were being mixed.
Yes.
And what they called research flights were the flights that they logged, and they wrote down everything about that flight. But then they had what were known as service flights that were top secret flights, and those flights were launched on a need-to-know basis. And when you look at it, the whole secret is right there. They were actually testing all kinds of balloons. They had to put some kind of coating on the balloons because they were deteriorating because of the sun.
Right. Yes.
So UFO researchers are completely spinning their wheels to go back and look at Roswell. They need to look at other areas.
Well, that's why it's the foundation is so weak, because it's built on this event that did not happen.
Well, didn't Roswell not even surface till years later? I mean, it wasn't really made much of when it actually happened.
Yeah, because Roswell happened in 1947, and it pretty much died away right around that same time.
But
it didn't.
When was it revived? When did it actually hit the...
1978.
Yeah, with your friends.
So it was like 30 years later.
Stan Friedman.
And it was, the story was printed in it was an Inquirer magazine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how reliable they are. Mm-hmm. And actually back in 47, it had on the July 8th, I believe it was when that foreman reported that he had found, disc material.
Right.
Right.
And really what that stuff was a precursor to Mylar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When you look at it.
Right.
And that isn't new. I mean, that same foreman in the research that I did, he found several balloons like that on his property. It wasn't just that one, but this one might have been aluminum coated.
And I always thought the Maury Island incident, which supposedly happened around the same time, didn't have much substance to it either.
Well, what I'm finding, and this is why I'm asking for a, rethinking and revamping ufology, is that a lot of this stuff, everybody was telling their own story.
Right.
I mean, everyone. The military wanted to cover it up because Project Mogul was a top secret project, and they needed to cover that up. Mm-hmm. They were doing some great stuff there. Mm-hmm. And then you had the UFO enthusiasts. They were spinning it because they wanted to say it was a UFO, and there was no evidence at all that it came from another planet. Somebody just jumped to that conclusion at some point.
Well, they said the
Air Force, all the skeptics and everything that were all saying the same thing. It was just, in my opinion, a great counterintelligence effort.
Well, the Air Force came out that when they brought the wreckage into town and blah blah blah. That's another thing too, is that where this really happened is like 75 miles away from Roswell, but that's another show. But when they brought it into the Air Force, and the Air Force says, we finally got a flying disc. Now, just to put that in context, the Kenneth Arnold sighting had just happened a few weeks before. And all of a sudden, the country was like crazy, flying saucer crazy. Everyone was seeing flying saucers everywhere. And a lot of them were verifiable, sightings of flying saucers. So everyone's going, what is going on? And then all of a sudden they say, we finally got one. We've got a flying disc. Now, in the back of a lot of people's heads were that these were Russian secret weapons or whatever, okay?
Exactly.
And then they come out and they go, well, not really. It was really like a balloon. And what I always thought was like, well, we have to really Project Mogul and everything else that we got invested in this, we really have to keep that secret. So why don't we have the cover story being flying disc, but then they have to say, well, how do you explain it? And they couldn't. So, but you're absolutely right. It went away until Stan Friedman, got together with the National Enquirer in the late 70s, let's just say 78, and revived it. Here's Stan calling from heaven right now. And
tell him I said hello,
he
please.
said, yeah, okay. We're assuming heaven. And and that kind of brought the whole thing back. And I can tell you this for a fact, because when I was growing up, reading flying saucer books in my crib, I would always, I got lots and lots of like Donald Keyhole and stuff like that. Never any mention about Roswell. Go back into those old books. There's never any mention about Roswell because it was kind of said and done. And there's only when Stan got the Inquirer on it, and then all of a sudden in the 80s you had People Are Strange type of TV shows, People Strange People, whatever, and that kind of started that whole idea of paranormal and stuff. And was the thing that
was Charles Berlitz in on that one?
Charles Berlitz, he wrote the Bermuda Triangle. Yeah. So
he
was the
wrote the book, a 1980s book called The Roswell Incident, where it was Stanton Friedman had done the research for that book, and then the man you just mentioned, and then another man by the name of Moore came up.
Oh yeah, William Moore.
William Moore came up with that book. But there's even other things that were going on there too, like on July 8th when the foreman brought in said he found the balloon parts, and he said he might have a flying disc.
Yes.
Well, then on July 9th, he changed his story, and the local Roswell newspaper did a retraction of that it was a flying disc on July 9th.
Right.
But when the Inquirer published the 1978 article, they didn't include the retraction.
Oh, why would they?
So they never stated in 1978 that he said, wait a minute, I think maybe it was a balloon because they landed all over the place.
Let me just, I have to throw this to Coco because I can tell. What do you think? Roswell, yes or no there, Cece?
Yeah, I'm a no guy, Mac, only because of some of the things you guys have discussed tonight. And when we talked about the surveillance balloons, because they did not have the satellite network set up, the U-2 is not available. And we knew that the then Soviets were very close to detonate atomic weapons, and there was no means to have intelligence. This is the way it goes. In this particular base, in this particular region, the 509th was based there after they had come back from successful operations in the Pacific. There's a lot of stuff around it. And I'm drawing the conclusion that I think the Air Force had its first real disinformation campaign when they realized that it was easy to go with UFOs.
Yes.
And the craze that was going on. And they had, public affairs people that were becoming the nom de jour for operations, because they figured, hey, look, this is the only way to really get this thing side deflected. You cannot talk about what's going on.
And another thing, too, is when you see Roswell stories nowadays, right, you will always see something, a line in there, and it'll say something like, as soon as this happened, it flashed across the country. It flashed across the country. Everyone was talking about it. Well, number one, back then, media is no way near what it is now. Okay, it would take like 2 or 3 days for a story to get from California to Boston. That's just how it was. And it didn't flash across the country. It might have had, a few in New Mexico, I'm sure, as headlines, but, you can't really find a lot of stories about it in the New York Times or Chicago or the Boston Globe or whatever. It was only because they revived it. National Enquirer revived it, and then, it kind of took off from there. And the thing that really kind of puts the period at the end of the sentence is that we had one of the gentlemen on from Roswell who went through it, and he moved out of Roswell because Roswell had become such a parade, such a circus, such a tourist attraction, I guess, that he said, I couldn't take it anymore, and he moved out. So, good for them for making a buck. Who cares, and Roswell is always in the, it's ingrained in people's minds now, but you really look into it. Right, Dr. Bob? There ain't nothing there except a balloon.
And what's really bad is the evidence is right there, but you have some people, I know I've taken a lot of heat by other ufologists because I told the truth of what I found. So it's right there in the reports.
And can we move on to a more current case? I'm worn out by Roswell. 73 years.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone's dead.
Right.
We're not going to find anything else
but
as
it's
far
true.
as I'm concerned.
It's true.
But, Dr. Bob, I had an interest over years in this Kecksburg case out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Great case. Yep.
Back in 1965.
Yep.
And I noticed, it's still open as far as a lot of people are concerned.
Switchy's wife saw it coming down, right, Switchy? Was it your wife or your girlfriend?
Yeah, it crossed the sky in the mid-'60s. It went across Michigan, and everybody just thought it was a meteor.
Right.
And it was a big deal. We had to write a creative writing story. I was in junior high the next day on what it was. Really? I did unconscious plagiarism, I think. I think I borrowed a plot from an old comic book.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, when you read into it, I don't know. It's, they supposedly saw this acorn-shaped object halfway into the ground, and it landed there. There was some kind of hieroglyphics.
Yes.
Supposedly the military got there very quickly and took it away. Then, of course, like everything else, they denied there was anything. But, there were so many witnesses to that. And I know, after that, the town made out very well, just like, all the Roswell stuff, they have.
Well, I'm going to have to stop you there. I can't let that one slide. Kecksburg has not made out real well. It's nothing like a Roswell. They have a wonderful festival, but they do not.
That's no, I didn't mean to overplay it, but I mean, they have gotten some tourism out of it.
There's a monument.
I think there's something to it from what I read.
Here's the thing is in just the elevator story about this is basically, in 65, I know, is in the winter that lots and lots of people saw this light in the sky, heading towards the east, from west to east. During the day, a lot of people saw it. Switchy's wife saw it. And what happened was that what a lot of people saw it do is like make a U-turn, which medias usually don't do. And it got a lot of people thinking that, hey, what's going on here? So, and then all of a sudden in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, which is up in the northwestern part of the state, I believe, kind of near Pittsburgh in a way.
Not far from Pittsburgh, yes.
But rural.
Near Greensburg.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, boom, this thing is in the forest, and a lot of people heard it, saw it come down. They go in the forest, and they report this acorn-shaped type of thing, acorn-shaped, right? So the local cops come in, a local radio reporter came in. He saw it. A lot of kind of civilians show up. But the military shows up very, very quickly. I remember we did a show about this, and we said, well, why would the military be near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania? Well, it turns out there were two National Guard bases kind of close to it, and they were kind of there. They kicked everyone out of the woods, the military did, and then they took this acorn-shaped thing, put it on a tractor-trailer, a flatbed truck, and off they go. And that's it. And then later on, the radio reporter...
Dr. Bob, what do you think? What's your opinion on this?
Well, fortunately, I grew up in Pittsburgh during that time.
Yes.
And I heard the 1965 KDKA recording going on when that was happening, because they were broadcasting it over I lived right outside of Pittsburgh because I'm from that area.
Yes.
But my parents wouldn't let me go out there because I was a terrible driver. It had happened. Right. They were announcing that there was a UFO seen on the radio, KDKA, and I heard it on the car radio. And my brother and I were my mother sent us to confession again because we were kind of like misbehaving.
Confession?
So we drove from
it was a sin to believe in it.
From the church parking lot to home and asked if we could go out there to see a UFO, and they said, no way. And then so later on, I started following that story because at one time in 1985, after I finished my doctorate at Penn State, I was going to write a children's musical, and it was going to be about UFOs and flying saucers and stuff.
Yeah, nice.
So I wanted to get information.
Well,
I joined a group called the Pennsylvania Association for the Study of the Unexplained.
Yes.
And Stan Gordon headed that group up.
Yeah, Stan's a good guy. Yeah.
The Kecksburg case was their pet case.
Yep.
They had like hierarchies in organization of it.
Yes.
So I mean, I was really on that case from the get-go. And in 1987, I heard it was a witness. Hold it, there's someone on my door.
Okay, there you go. Hopefully it's not the police. But I just say this, is that if you see a picture of, an artist rendering of what the Kecksburg vehicle was, and you look at a Russian Soyuz...
I've actually sent a picture into the chat if you want to look at it.
A Russian Soyuz capsule.
I had a do not disturb sign on
That's okay. What happened? You should put a tie out there, Dr. Bob. Put a tie out on your door. No one will bug you. But a Soyuz...
I put a do not disturb sign and a recording in progress sign.
Or something in progress.
Obviously, ignored that. But if you look at a Soyuz...
I'm sorry about that.
A Soyuz Russian spacecraft, and what people said they saw come down in the woods in Kecksburg, they're extremely, extremely similar. Okay, and if you look at everything, all the evidence of that, except the fact that the thing took a right-hand turn or a 180 turn, it could have just been, a Soyuz craft that came down too early or something malfunctioned on takeoff. I think a lot of people actually, have the number of the Soyuz craft and stuff. We got it. Okay, we're not going to let, the Russians know we got it, though. I got a feeling they probably return it to them somehow, secretly. And it reminds me a lot, too, Coco, in the 6 minutes we have left, of that situation up in the pond in New Hampshire, where something went through the pond and no one knew what it was, and the military...
Yeah, it's the Wakefield monster, Mack, that it's referred to, very short distance here from the compound.
Yep.
And that one's all been proven that it was a nuclear-powered Russian satellite that came down. And the reason that they were ready to move on it as quick as they were is that they tracked its flight path.
Coming down, yeah. Yep, land in this guy's pond.
78.
And people, gather around and what is this? And all of a sudden, people show up, take something out of the pond, put it in the truck, and goodbye. And that was it, but something obviously happened. And in Kecksburg, the same thing, but doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of extraterrestrial thing, especially when you see the two shots, the two images next to each other, Akon, easily.
Well,
Yes.
speaking of Kecksburg, I recommend a film that recently came out. It's called Kecksburg.
Yes.
And it's on Prime.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched it the other night for half an hour, and I laughed so much.
Laughed?
I couldn't take it. I got a headache over it.
Laughing?
But if you want to see a movie about Kecksburg, go on Prime. And
is it
again,
meant to be?
The answers are all out there.
Yes.
Because there was a satellite launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base, I believe it was, in California.
Yep.
And it did have a golden acorn film bucket inside the satellite recovery vehicle.
So it could be that. Yeah, it could be that. Yeah. And
it was exactly because I spoke to like 5 witnesses who actually saw that night, and they described it as a gold-plated huge acorn, and that's exactly what landed. And they had been working with they were called Corona satellites.
Yeah, but yes, right. Yeah,
the size of that one, Dr. Bob, the size that shows up in Kecksburg, though, Dr. Bob, doesn't match the size that I've seen from most of the actual satellites. And the last time I spoke to Stan Gordon, he says that he has some more information that he isn't quite ready, prepared to release yet on his study on.
What's he waiting for? But hey, listen, Switchy, let me just real quick. Wasn't there some radio reporter that got he got visited by the Men from Black? He did a radio report, a tape report. He was about to put it out on the radio. The Men in Black showed up, brought him in the back room. The secretary verified this, and he changed, basically the gist of the story, put that out, and then a year later, wasn't he cut down in some kind of a weird hit and run or something? I dreamed that.
I don't know that one.
Yeah.
I just know that
it was Murphy.
There were people, some people tried to get close to the landing or crash site, depending on your version, and they were, there were military there that pushed them away.
Right. Yeah.
There were rumors of the flatbed truck with the, the cover over it, and some object there.
They took something out. But Clubb, did you ever read that about the guy gets hit like a year later or something?
His name was Murphy, and he died. They interviewed his wife. There's all kind of interviews with his wife about that.
Yep.
But I can't tell you. You have to go and, if you get a chance, watch that movie.
Is it funny on purpose?
You'll get the full story.
Is it funny on purpose?
Yeah, you.
It's fun. I hope it's funny on purpose.
Okay, all right, there you go. There's a review for you. It better be. So
I'm looking for it.
What about if we go back a ways? I mean, some of the early reports, I just wonder if you think they were legitimate. The Lorenzens, again, they kind of broke tradition. Donald Kehoe, who wrote some good books, but he didn't want to get into who was driving the flying craft.
Right, yes.
But the Lorenzens wrote 2 or 3 books back in the 60s, I think it was, and they documented several landings where people would see various type of occupants, and this is really before the grays became predominant in these reports.
Yes, sorry.
I just wonder if you've ever looked at any of that, if you think that people were really seeing something, or if it was some kind of psyop, or what was really going on there. Because there are quite a few reports. There's Flatwoods, there's Socorro, New Mexico, Cisco Grove. There's some real classic events.
Dr. Bob, what do you think?
Yes, well, in the some of the things I've run into is that this around the same time, like in the 60s, mid 60s, they were doing satellite experiments with primates. And the photographs that I saw of the primates, even in the Corona satellites, they were wearing what looked like chainmail for protection in the satellite. And I think some of the people may have seen that.
Wow,
as primates that were being flown. They were doing experiments with them because they still didn't understand, the radiation around the Earth yet. And there were a lot of projects, secret projects that were going on by the military where they were sending up satellites, like they were sending up even Corona satellites that were supposed to be spy satellites, but they had actual other experiments inside.
Yeah, Corona satellites.
Do you think that any of these events might have actually been otherworldly?
No, not yet.
No.
I mean, I think we're still, there's, in my opinion at least, there's always that statistical possibility because of the Drake equation that that's going to exist out there. Nothing that I've seen yet convinces me we've been visited yet. I think someday we will be, but I've not seen anything that convinces me yet.
I should just say the Drake equation, 1-1, is 2 Yankee Doodles equal 1 ring ding. Yeah. That's inside. Well, listen, we have a few minutes to go, and I just want to just go back to Valerie. So, Val, have you ever seen UFO, or can you tell when people, like if you walked into a room and there were 5 people there, could you tell someone who had been visited, someone who do they have a different vibe?
Not necessarily. I think it would depend. Personally, yes, I've had encounters. I've had all kinds of encounters, from encounters as a medium connecting with the energy of an off-world being to having my own very real encounter as a child with my father.
Okay.
There's definitely a difference. I don't know how to describe it, but there's a different energy around non-human beings.
Ooh, okay.
I'm not the only one that has experienced that and expressed that same thing.
So you can tell? You can tell in a crowd who's a non-human being?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I've been sitting at a mall and I saw a guy walk by one time and I was like, that guy is not human.
Wow.
I could just tell there was a couple details they got wrong. Just,
really? Oh, yeah.
I think malls would be a good place for
malls
aliens to be.
That's where I would start.
Okay. Nobody will notice you.
What store was this individual going to? So I know not to shop.
Fox Run?
Victoria's Secret.
In the mall. I don't know where he's.
Come out with us some night, Val, okay? And identify people like that for us and save us a lot of trouble.
Okay. That's why I love people watching, because you never know what you're going to see.
That's also called stalking, but that's another show.
There's nobody.
Take a selfie.
There's nobody in the mall near me, so you wouldn't be doing much people watching there.
Don't worry, they'll be back. So anyway, hey, Dr. Bob, thanks for joining us, and give us plug your YouTube channel again. Plug your YouTube channel again, please.
Okay, it's just been out there, and it's exploring the exceptional with Dr. Gross.
Okay. Do you interview people? Ever interview people?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm mostly still learning how the whole YouTube recording works.
Why don't you interview us? How about us? Well, Larry and Curly.
We're pretty exceptional.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're pretty exceptional.
But, I've got now I've got 8 different.
There you go. That's a brush off
that I'm using, including music. I'm going to be touching on music as well as ghosts.
Why do I have this feeling I'm talking to God the Father? You know what I mean? I know it's a radio show, but anyway, it's
better than God the Holy Ghost, right?
Dr. Bob, thanks very much. You used to pal around with Donnie. What's his name? Olea. What was he had that big hit there in Pittsburgh? One guy, Donnie Iris.
Donnie Iris.
Yeah. What's he doing these days?
I don't know. Yeah. Members of my band used to rehearse with his band.
Yeah, Olea. That's a great rock song.
Yeah.
That's a really cool song. And it's cool that you still look like a musician. That gives me hope there, brother.
Thank you. I tried to.
Thank you, Dr. Bob, for joining us. How about that medical marijuana?
You
the last time you were on, we asked you, can you get us some medical marijuana? You said, let me look into it. Are you looking into it?
They have some things that are available in this area. It's legal.
Oh, really? Yeah? Okay. All right. That's what UPS is for. Thank you, Dr. Bob. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So should we wrap this up there, JJ?
I think so.
All right. Wow. Okay. Let's start Beauty Before the Beast. Valerie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, but you didn't say much tonight, and that's kind of get us a little paranoid. Are we okay?
Well, we had a lot of deep subjects here.
Not deep. Too deep? Too deep.
It's like, you can't just butt in on some of these things.
There you go. Too deep, Val?
We'll get the report later.
It's like being at the Thanksgiving table with my Italian relatives. You know, it's pretty
pretty chaotic. Okay, all right, thank
I
you.
know exactly what you're talking
There's
about.
a compliment in there somewhere. Thank you, Valerie. And anything to plug your friend's UFO book or what they're going to be on the show in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, Nomar Slevik. It's Granite Skies. It's a story about Mike Stevens and his encounters and the human aspect behind somebody who's had some traumatic ET encounters.
Oh, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of people kind of report that type of thing. Thank you, Val, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Switchy. Oh, I guess I got to go. Let me go to Clubb. I'm sorry. Hold it, Switchy. All right. Contractually, I have to go to Clubb.
Oh God, I got to wait. Okay.
No, go to Switch.
There you go. Whitey. Thank you for joining us. Clubb. Thank you for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
We're talking to Whitey right now there, Switchy. Clubb.
It was still my pleasure.
Okay.
I got to tell you, Mac, tonight I've really learned a lot.
Really?
Some nights I leave and I haven't learned a lot, but tonight my brain is
And he says,
Really?
That's 2 hours of my life I want back.
Give us some examples of some of the shows where you didn't learn anything.
That left a mark. Thank you very much. Thank you, Clubb. Okay. All right. Thank you, Switchy, Mr. Donut. Okay. Just do a little bit.
And I learned a lot too.
Did you really? Don't eat yogurt. How about that? Yeah. Don't lie about it next time.
Is it Siggy's yogurt by any chance?
No, I don't do that. But the fans are going to get what I had for breakfast. I'm not going to. No artistic embellishment.
Okay.
No BS.
All right.
It's just a straight
full transparency.
See,
okay.
Yogurt has the power of the Schwartz, so I don't understand what the problem is.
The power of
yogurt.
the what?
Power of the Schwartz?
Of the Schwartz? What's that?
It's a space.
And I think I felt the power of the Schwartz today.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
It's a baseball reference?
Is it really?
Oh, I like it.
I also believe it's in Pittsburgh, but we'll have to check with Whitey on that.
There you go.
I know that's true.
The power of
research that.
The power of the Schwartz that only a putz would know.
Whoa. Wow, wait.
Unless he's a schlemiel.
Yikes. Schlemiel. Thank you. Oive. For the rest of us.
Yeah, well.
You're my sugar. What do you think you're dealing with this?
Don't call me a sugar.
Anyway, thank you, everyone else there listening to us. Thank you, Coco, for joining us. Coco, taking time out of his busy day. Thank you. Clubb, thank you.
I'm just happy that we're not schmucks.
Schmucks.
Okay, so we're in the spirit of the evening.
Exactly.
He gets the funny
Let me get my menorah going.
Light that third candle.
Valerie, thank you. Dr. Bob, thank you. Switchy, thank you. Clubb, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, One Line.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go ahead. There he has. Look at this. Coco has a menorah.
Well, thank you, Mac.
Do you blow them all out at once?
That wouldn't be sanitary, Mac.
Okay. Thank you, everyone out there listening to us. And we should just say really quickly for the plugs, we are a podcast now, podbean.com, or go to Alexa and say, Alexa, please, Alexa, I want to do with the please. Alexa, play Mack Maloney's Military X-Files on Apple Podcasts, and we'll be right there in the machine.
Just Google Mack Maloney's Military X-Files.
Right.
You'll get a page and a half of hits.
Yeah. Find us on Google.
I printed them out one day.
Find us
Everyone's
on
a legitimate hit. Click on any one of those.
And thank you for downloading. We're really astounded at some
He
of the
likes
numbers.
to print that stuff out when he's working on clients, like my house.
Well,
That's right. I like to print out stuff, documentation.
And charging you by the hour. Okay, I got to print out these 153
and
pages.
Keep your printer in good order, and he needs more ink.
And telling you everything you need to know about Keith Richards. Then he sends you the bill, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone out there listening to us. Homes for Our Troops, HFORT. Homes for Our Troops. Just find them in Google. They provide homes mortgage-free to Afghan and Iraqi war victims. And who else we got? The Mack Maloney's Goodreads giveaway, Battle of the Wingman, Wingman 20, coming out this month. Just go to mackmaloney.com, hit the star, and you get into the contest to win a autographed copy of Battle of the Wingmen, Wingman 20. We had 1,252 people last week, 2 weeks ago, for Codename Starman.
Really?
The Chris
that
yeah,
many?
So, yeah. It was interesting. So go to mackmaloney.com, hit the star, and get in on the free giveaway. So those are the plugs. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you, gang. And this is Mac for the entire posse saying, until next time, be safe, be happy, and...
Bye-bye.